Alright. Hello. My name is Dustin. I'm here. I'm in frame. Just barely. I can scoot in a little.
You scoot, you scoot.
Scoot just a smidge. Over this way. There we go.
When
That's a
you
little bit better.
move the setup multiple times, you lose the framing.
How's it going, Lorraine?
Delightful.
Um,
Absolutely fantastic.
It's the weekend. It's a Saturday.
Wow.
That means we work on video games sometimes when we can. So
Wow.
we're gonna do a little of that today.
Fantastic.
I'm gonna pull up this text
Amazing.
and
Our unaired pre-show was banishing the cat because she's being quite a
Something like
nuisance
that.
today.
Let me know what you think about that, Lorraine.
I saw it for half a second, so I read it in its entirety.
Yeah, we're gonna check out one of the boss fights today.
Okay.
I have fixed a bunch of other random problems in other parts of the game that I'm hoping at least some of them will have
Stuck.
Well, will have applied to here, where like the exit pipes were being weird in the boss fights. I think they're fine now. Dying in the boss fights were being weird. Actually, that one I might not have fixed. We'll find out.
To your credit, it's always been weird.
Although I think because it didn't show a result screen at one of the, I don't remember. We'll figure it out. And we're gonna see if the fight is even working in any way, shape, or form right now.
Wow.
And address some of the functionality changes we are interested in implementing there. At least dig into them, if not implement them this afternoon. And for this, it's been a while, so I'm gonna need some help, Lorraine. But let's just load up the level and see what happens to start with.
Because I've looked at this much more recently than you.
Well, the thing is, it's possible you have, because I don't remember if this is one that I ever really got into, other than just like maybe changing the yeah, like doing stuff like that, like putting in the or in fact there isn't one that pops in here. I didn't add that. See, this is how long it's been since I done this, that I didn't even add the other cork here to block you from leaving. But do you know if he currently, okay, so he will hop, sometimes he will just kind of gesture, and then sometimes he does the tongue. Do you know if that's all random?
I believe so.
Okay. Kind of croaks, rivets, whatever.
I'm
he's still really cool.
Exceptionally proud of
he
everything around him.
He looks great. I like that frog. And then if I am correct, I think his hitbox is still, right now at least, kind of only in like the belly area. I think it's much lower on his body than like his whole body. Maybe it's even weirder than that. I actually remember,
You hit him at one point.
I hit him once. Maybe he's broken in some other way, because I would have. Okay, no, maybe it's just really, really small. I don't know. It'll be among the things we'll test.
I feel like it's probably less size and more of a specific window.
Yeah, it could be. Anyway, so yeah, right now, but that's the totality of the stuff he does. He hops around the bottom of the tank, does the tongue thing, and kind of chills out sometimes. And that's all well and good, but like I said, I do think that I'll really pause it just to leave him on screen. Oh. Like I said, some of my concerns in that gameplay wise were just that both the way he is implemented right now, if his hitbox is still either like small or just in his belly or whatever, it means the only way you can ever conceivably deal damage to him is just to always kind of get in harm's way, because he moves so quickly across the bottom of the tank. And if you're near the top of the tank, he doesn't really interact with you in any way whatsoever at the moment. Like he just kind of doesn't have an ability that strays up that high. So I have a couple ideas on how we can address that, and I do want to do the minimum amount of changes possible. At one point I did want to maybe make him like do a different jumping pattern where he would go real high like once or twice. I don't know if that's a thing. Like I'm asking you right now. This will be as much a fact-finding episode as anything. How hard do you think that would be to implement?
I mean, a lot of it would be me having to go back into the animator and really like remember that stuff, because his movement is pretty complex.
Yeah.
Compared to everything else in this game. Most of the other stuff is physics-based. Him and the garbage disposal have like in-engine built animations as opposed to being a sprite sheet.
Like the arms and stuff on that thing. Yeah.
And when I made them, I was learning it at the time.
And it's been a while.
And it's been a long time.
That's fair.
I feel like a way to mitigate that problem is to maybe lower the ceiling or raise the floor or whatever, shrink the space.
Okay, yeah, that's we can definitely do that too.
Because a lot of these rooms were built off of some fairly generic like piece sizes as opposed to being super unique. I don't know if you're building random layout, like if you're using the tile editor to build any of the other rooms for the bosses, or if you're just using the large images.
Let's check that, because I don't actually remember myself if that I changed that in any way. I kind of suspect I might have, but let's see.
And the other thing that I have in concern to making him damageable everywhere, that will keep you from having to interact with him at all. Like, you could just, even if he does do other things, you could ignore him completely and just cheese him the whole way. That was why I made the hitbox so low, because it forced you to engage with him as opposed to just being like, you're in game view. So that's why it's dumb. No, the room is there. Okay.
But that doesn't necessarily mean it's not made out of the pieces. I'm just trying to check if there's
I don't think the tile editor is here. I don't see it anywhere.
No, I don't think so either. I'm just really trouble.
I mean, I don't read the word, like, for the tile map, so it's not there.
Okay. Can you tell? Oh,
I'm sure there's also something called Boss 815, which maybe is the room itself. Or no, it's longer. There you go. Yeah, because it's got the old 2D colliders or edge colliders that I've hand set for all the walls.
Okay. There is a
and I still think the best way for us to understand what's going on in that fight is to look more at the code after seeing it playing out for a small amount of time. Because his script is, I feel like, because again, like as I got through more of them, it kind of started with, I mean, this was the carrot was the second boss that I designed. I started making more like, I started making compartmentalized code, like separating how he moves from how he attacks and having it feed into each other with inheritance and other just script references or whatever. And I know just because of how complex their animations were, the frog and the garbage disposal definitely have weirder scripts because they do, like, they're, I don't exactly remember how they pick from their list, if it is just like a simple nested if or whatever, or like if, big old if statement, or what, just because it's been so long since I've looked at it. I don't think there was anything like as complex as a lot of the stuff that you used for like Atticus in Cucumber, for example. I know he's got a lot of like more pattern type things that kind of feed off each other. I don't think it's that complex, but it's definitely bigger than a lot of the other stuff in Down the Drain specifically.
All right. Oh, let's come back, cursor.
Never. Got so many sounds too. Beautiful. This is not gonna help you. I just think you should go to boss. There's like boss scripts.
I'm looking for his level right now. The scene itself.
Might not even be called that. Like, I couldn't tell you. Just go to scenes. Hit his frog boss room.
Okay. Actually, a lot of errors, a lot of warnings.
It's all dark tonic.
Well, that's different than the other errors we had in there.
Yeah.
Alright. That's weird.
Correct. See, I think this is just a lot of the like stuff that you added for like I think it's off of the M pipe, isn't it? Or no? Or I don't know what any of this. Why is it talking about the GUI? No.
That's annoying and weird. So this is like the only trigger thing. Does this even start the fight and stuff?
Anything that's called fight start, so good chance that it does.
Okay. Yes, I haven't been in here at all, really. That's about right. Because if we look at the this is it has technically I guess a little more functionality because it has 2 hitboxes and it's like
It's
checking
to
if you're on
move
one
him.
side or the other. But excuse me. But this is like the carrot equivalent to that. So what this has been pared down to is just this stuff in here, and then most of the functionality is in this pre-script. So I have to think about that for a minute. Because like something like this would only apply to the left one because this is just the trigger thing when you enter the room.
Wait, can you go back to Unity for a second? Go to the boss room itself, not the room controller. It's like 3 up from where you're at. Does it? Can you open it?
It shouldn't have any other hitboxes or anything because it didn't.
Okay,
show any
I
other.
wasn't sure.
No, I know, but it didn't show any other green lines. So it's just the colliders on the walls. What do you want to... Is there anything you off the top of your head that you want to check out to investigate any of this stuff? Because now that I'm seeing
I don't know what you want to focus on. Do you want to focus on, like, getting this up to speed with some of the other stuff? Do you want to look at him himself? Like, what is more important to you to start?
Let's actually just, like, let's look at him himself.
Okay.
In every way that you can think of. Because, like I said, the fact that I haven't even updated any of that room stuff means that my memories are mostly correct, and I really haven't touched the sequence pretty much in any way. So, with all that said, even though you also haven't looked at it in a very long time, you technically have seen it probably more recently than I have. So let's just help each other learn and or remember things about how all of this works. Because, like, that other thing is, like, let me go back to the title screen. I'll load it up again, because that's actually, really good to know, too. That even, like I said, I didn't know that the 2 hitboxes were there, the 2 triggers.
Like I said, they're for moving him. They're to get him to get to the opposite side of the room so he can attack you.
Because that's another thing I was going to ask you, actually, when I was watching this play out. Like, he'll be over here now because I'm on this side.
I think it also, like, it depends on it. Like I said, I'd have to look at his fucking script to tell you for sure, because I don't know, but it depends on what attacks he does, like how close you are to him. It's like he knows if you're more above him, he'll send his tongue more upward most of the time, or not. Because it's based on when he stops, as opposed to, like, real time, because...
I'm dodging. I was just trying to see how frequently he, like, if passing through the triggers makes him actually have more or less frequently. So I guess let's just look. It doesn't really appear that that's the case. I'm just like, imagining it. Like, oh, see, like, something like that must have been, like you said, maybe it's just if you pass through the exact right frame when he's neutral. Alright, let's look into the code and find out. Because, like I said, I would have expected him, if it were, just purely, like, go to side and do an action, I would expect him to actually do something when he lands in a corner, not immediately jump back to the other one. Alright, let's check it out.
Yeah, I think jumping to the other side is just a thing he can do when he gets there, so he's not sitting still all the time. And you have his main controller open. I don't know.
Alright, let me close out some of this other shit. That for now. Yeah, I know.
Just keep coming. I don't stop coming. I don't stop coming.
More than this, actually. I'm gonna use this opportunity. I'm just gonna close, like, every single thing until I run out. Stick around for now. Okay. Yep, that's everything. Alright. That's the carrot. There we go. Left side attack, right side attack. Are those the hitboxes too, or is that something else?
I'm not sure. I have to look at more than, like, 4 lines to tell you what's going on.
Alright. Let's go back to the... Let's open the scene.
Assembler, because this is going to be impossible for me to follow along with you scrolling at, like, an insane rate.
Is his main controller attached to him? It is. Oh no, those are just positions. It looks like they're literally just transforms. Okay, they're like those two, the left attack and right attack, are just empty game objects. That's fine. All right. Oh, I see. And they're even attached to him, so it's that makes sense too. Like he's divorced from the. I'm assuming that's how he's built. It involves how he's built in the Unity animator, which is fine. So that's just like his mass mostly. Yeah, that makes sense. Chomp area attack. Yeah, he does have a little weak spot on his belly. Like that is a little hard to see just because he's also green, but yeah, you can make it out. Okay. So he's actually not that physically complicated. There's not that much stuff on him. So Lorraine, do you remember? Is that chomp thing when he does the little mouth open thing? Is that when this hitbox is active? The little one that's in front of his face? Maybe.
Man.
Maybe. That's fine. Like I said, it's okay. It's totally okay. I'm just.
Which one is it? Well, there you go. I think that just does damage if she's in that area.
Okay.
I mean, it's got a controller attached to it.
Okay.
A lot of coroutines in the script.
That's fine.
Now I'm looking at it.
It's good. Probably. Okay. Let's go back to his main script. That was the one I was on before. So this gets a reference to the Unity animator. And sets up that, which there's okay, which just turns it off. That's fine. Just flip some, that's fine too. It like flips that hitbox. It flips.
Would you rather I had two?
No, it's fine. I'm just contemplating, just making sure I understand. No, that's perfectly fine. It's the root controller. There you go. He waits about a half a second and then chooses to do a thing. He's dead, so it does. Some sequence of dead stuff. Well, that's if not dead. So this one is if dead. If you're dead, don't do anything. So he's not actually vulnerable at all when he's jumping. That's also probably fine. Oh. Jump. Change side. Tag box. Another pause.
Pretty sure a lot of these weights are based around the animations themselves. Just because, like, him jumping, stopping, turning, those are all individual animations. And I'm pretty sure all this timing is based on those.
Okay, so that's actually kind of hard to change depending on. I'm just asking questions. It's good to know, but
I mean, I think that's why I used coroutines, because I could do that. I could have it wait and do a thing.
Okay. That's fine. Do you know? I'm not planning on changing this at this point in this fight, but just for my future. Do you recall if there's a way to trigger stuff on like certain keyframes in the Unity?
No idea.
Okay, so that's a thing you can do in the 2K2D stuff, which is
I mean, you probably can, but I'd have to relearn all of this
That's
and
fine.
learn more than I knew
Like
before.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I'm just asking. Like I said, I'm literally just asking off the top of my head questions that I don't necessarily expect you to know the answer to them, but you might, and I don't. Like I know that I don't. So on the off chance that you do, I'll ask stuff, but don't feel like I'm expecting you to know the answer, because like I said, I know it's been a really long time since you built this stuff, and we both checked it out. Okay, so that's one jumping sequence. That makes sense. That all seems fine. Then he's done jumping. He does another thing. Which that's back up here, right? Yeah. Change attack position. Is that called in the jumping thing, or is that called somewhere else? Okay, right there.
It's literally
it's only got one
flipping
reference.
them.
It's only called there. Okay.
It's literally just like I'm pretty sure that's what it's doing.
So if you're on the same side of him, he can either chomp or tongue. And if you're not, he can croak. He can croak or tongue. Okay. Let's look at some of those then. Okay, that's what I wanted to check. So he just jumps after every other neutral action, it looks like.
Yes, I'm pretty sure that was true.
That's fine. I just needed to. Croak leads into attack. Attack leads into jump. That makes sense. Okay, so if he takes a hit. Okay, he just does that animation if he's not dead. Them croaks.
Many croaks.
Okay.
Wish I could have done Foley work on getting frog croaks. Would have been rad.
Get out there, finding some frogs to croak.
Mm-hmm.
To coax croaks from. Alright. I think that all pretty much makes sense.
Here's a concession
Mm-hmm.
that might make things easier. The back collider could do less damage and won't interrupt him. The weak spot collider could be, like the lower one, could be enabled more frequently when he's sitting still and will interrupt him.
Okay. Yeah, we can try to do something like that maybe.
A lot of it's going to change once he can fill the room with bubbles, which maybe just won't go away. Because if we, I know, like thinking back over how the animator works, it's really position based. So I don't know how it will affect if we move him up or down even. Like that horizontal stretch is very specific, and I don't know how relative that positioning is to him getting moved. So we either would have to lower the ceiling and not change the floor where the floor position is at all, which is not a problem, or we don't let whatever projectiles that he emits be. I think we were talking about spikes and bubbles was one of the things that we were talking about, because the spikes don't destroy themselves. They're just there. So like maybe they're not lethal the first time you hit them because you'll pop the bubble, but then there's just going to be spikes all over the place, which could then be destroyed when you kill him.
Mm-hmm.
So like that would kind of change the verticality of the room without having to physically change the room.
Yeah, we can definitely do something like that. All right, so I'm on board for. Let's pull this back over then.
Because the more I think about it, the less I want to mess with the animator.
I don't have a note on here, so we'll just I'll only leave notes in here of things we're going to end up doing, so that's fine with me. Let's let him. We'll leave his jumping be as is. We're not gonna mess with that. So he'll be able to jump to the left, jump to the right.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. Because in the interest of just minimizing scope creep, that's totally acceptable. I'm gonna put look into changing the level layout. In fact, I'm just gonna make this all frog boss changes.
Yeah, if there's one thing that's extremely annoying about Assembla is that like when you start scrolling, it'll like bring down the like header bar and like hide it, and when you stop, it comes back. So it's like jittering like this as I'm scrolling down. It's very annoying. I'm gonna complain for a second. That's all.
Look at the level layout to make it smaller. Which would, among other things, include keep the floor where it is. Lower the ceiling and move other pipes. Excuse me. Try to do this with the 2D tile map objects, which should be totally possible to just like do them randomly, or not do them randomly, just to paint them like we do on the cucumber levels. Like if we just plop the stuff in a scene and do that, because each chunk has its own colliders that as needed for whatever walls it possesses. So I think that'll be okay.
Because you can do that with the normal pipe segments too, right? They don't have to be randomly placed. You could just make a whole level like that.
You could, theoretically, yeah.
Okay. I mean, that could just be something we do. to make to the opening and exit, just to.
I'm pretty darn sure.
Because like you could just keep it random, but like it really doesn't matter.
I'll check that out off the stream. We're not gonna mess with it here because I need to look up. I need to do some digging to confirm that, but I'm almost positive that's true. Just his hitbox. Make his back hit double with less
hit double
damage.
Or hittable.
Yeah, whatever. That's not really a word, I don't think.
No, hittable.
Put a question mark on there. What was your other note about his belly? Like, in what way? Tweak that. Because, like I said, we don't necessarily need to do these, but I'm going to put them down as possibilities.
Well, you wanted to change how you could hit him.
I know, but it's going to be, like I said, if we change other there's ways we can change other stuff around the fight that'll make this more doable. Like, if we make absolutely sure that he has, like, a really long neutral phase every once in a while, then we could probably leave it as is.
Pretty sure he's always damageable while he's croaking. I'm like 90% sure that that's the
like
case.
I would make, like, if that were the case, I would make the croak, like, we could make it so that the croak happens on a somewhat regular interval, and, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 times longer, just have him croak for a while. The other thing about this that always concerned me, was that I do think, here, I'll just put this down. If we leave his hitbox as is, there should be different audio when a level hits his
pretty sure he's got
invincible collider.
Well, in theory, if it's working as it should be, it just might not be updated completely. Like, the bubbles have different effects when they're doing damage and when they're not. Like, if you shoot a bubble into a wall, it'll pop. If you shoot a bubble into an enemy, it does that burst. And it should, like, it might not be an audio cue, but there's a visual indicator of damage versus no damage. I just don't know.
No, that's fine.
How it's interacting.
I think it's kind of subtle though, like, because it's just like the way the bubbles burst is slightly different, right?
I mean, it's literally what I just said, but yes.
Yeah. I'm just saying it's not like super obvious. And let me check.
I mean, right now, he does not make a sound when he does not take damage. Like, the bubble will hit him and nothing happens. When he takes damage, he specifically makes a sound. I mean, there's even a specific sound that plays when he takes damage.
I don't know if this is going to work or not. We're about to find out. So yeah, something like that is what I would like. If they were going to be separate colliders, is what I would like in theory to do. Although again, that's kind of big scope creep, right? Because he is already physically like one object. Like the gears in here are physically separate from the rest of the disposal. So it's very easy to make them change a color. Whereas obviously, like if I shoot the rest of it, it's not going to flash. Like that kind of.
I'm pretty sure.
Like usability, I think is real good for something, for specifically for things where you might think all of it is vulnerable, but in fact only part of it is vulnerable. Here's an idea. More cheats. If he's always stationary anyway, pretty much. I have to look at what like the other animations do, I guess, but like could maybe like overlay another belly on his belly. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure he does already change color when he's hit. That or I just did not get to doing that when I was updating every other enemy in the game to flash on their hurt animations.
No, I know that's fair, but like I said, I'm saying that like if even specifically only the part where he can get hurt flashes, then it's even more obvious that is the part that is hurtable. Oh. But like I said, we don't necessarily have to do that. It's just that's like a kind of
doing that means like it's gonna look really shitty if you do that because, like you said, it's a full sprite. It's not like his leg is on top of it, and like these are made in fucking paint.net, so they're already very janky and not as easy to manipulate as it could be in a better program.
Fair. How about this?
I would hate that if we did that.
All right.
Very much against doing that.
Let's combine these two things then, if that sounds okay. Let's what if we say make his back hittable with less damage? Make that hit make some distinct special sound.
I told you he already has a specific damaged sound. So like that's not like, and like I said, if you had written down everything that I had said about this change in particular, it doesn't interrupt him, whereas the other one does. So like, I don't know why you need to go so far out of your way to make something super specific for the less important one. Or we just leave it as it is and you just make the hitbox more on. Because right now it's not always activated. And if it is activated while he's sitting still longer, which he just doesn't do right now, I'm sure this won't be a problem.
Okay.
I just think some of this is getting into the weeds of what
All
is
right.
wrong with this fight.
Well,
because there's a lot of other smaller things we're going to change about how it functions.
That's fair. I just want it to be how about this? Here's another angle, because like I said, I just want it to be like the trial and error to be like eventually lead people to a very obvious conclusion. What if we leave him exactly as he is now, where his belly is only vulnerable and the rest of him isn't?
Mm-hmm.
And then
which I still think is the right course of action.
That's fine. And then we tighten up the fight so that the physical space is smaller, just so that just the whole thing is a little more compact. And then pretty much all the other bosses we have right now are basically bullet sponges. Like you just have to shoot them a bunch of times to eventually whittle their health down to 0. What if he has like some pretty limited frames of when you can hit him? Like you said, he's just neutral and croaking or whatever. That's maybe the only time you can interact with him. And when you do hit him in that state, it does like a lot, like 25% damage or more. Like it does a lot. So there's no way you'll not know. Like you'll see that you're doing all this other time, and nothing's happening, and then you catch him in this state, and you like are very like, oh, that's how I do this, because the meter went from full to like a big chunk is gone from like that one interaction. What do you think of that?
I mean, it's not terrible. I think that number will have to be tuned in, because I think 25 is a lot, depending on how often you want him to be croaking.
Sure, whatever. That's fine. Because like I said, the other we can dial it in, but like at very minimum, I think any contact with his weak spot should remove one or more whole pips of health, because the other ones don't necessarily work that way. I don't think. I think some of the damage can be
for him.
That's fine. I think some of the damage can be fractional enough that like they'll be taking damage, but you won't actually see the health bar deplete until you deal like a little more damage to round it off to like a whole number.
Well, that's why I had differences between the special weapons hitting and not. I don't know if you still have that in there. I honestly couldn't tell you what you've done to the special weapons, but they were always
I don't remember
supposed.
off the top of my head, but that should be true. Go ahead.
They were always supposed to do more damage
Mm-hmm.
at the cost of ammo.
Yeah. Okay, we can experiment with that. And if that's how you feel design-wise too, like if you just kind of strongly feel that way, let's do all this then.
Believe it or not, I have play tested most of the fights in this game for a long amount of time.
No, I know. Like I said, it's not that my concern isn't that it's not like functionally useful or interesting. I just want people to not think that it's broken because they haven't spent enough time doing it. Like that's a positive and a negative, because when you, it's kind of like when we talked on the game dev thing. Like when you play a thing 50 times, you know exactly how it works, so you know exactly what to do. Like I said, my fear is that if we don't fall all over ourselves to make it extremely obvious how this fight works in some way, that people are going to get confused by it, especially because none of the other ones work that way. Like, I guess the garbage disposal is the next closest, but like I said, he is at least like, we just had the luxury of the way he's physically built out of the parts. He has distinct pieces that like, and the animation like opens up inside the thing. I don't know. Just for me, it just, for whatever reason, I think that one makes more sense intrinsically. And like I said, I think the second if you see that the gears flash once as you're kind of just accidentally spamming projectiles around, you'll know like, oh yeah, that's the thing I have to do. So I want this fight to have some equivalent of that, even if it's not the exact same thing. So I think a big chunk of damage when you touch the smaller weak spot that he has is a fine compromise. I think that could solve that problem. So I'm gonna write that down.
Right. I mean, but what do you want me to say? Like,
Nothing.
We've already
I just
talked about this like 3 different times today. What else do you want me to add?
Keeping the floor. We're not changing his animations. That's all fine. Get rid of this too, since we're doing that right now. Just make changes to the room controller to update it in match the other fights. That's fine. I have to do that, obviously. And then this, I still think, right, like you said, we're obviously going to do that in some form.
It will involve some changes to the animator, but I think it will just be adding an animation, because he's already got like a mouth open one, and we can either just like completely scrap that and repurpose it, keep it there, and add something on top of that. Because I think a close range, because like that was more for if you're using like, for whatever wild reason, the saw or the clamps, because they're a close range weapon. And if you're just up there and he just can't hurt you, like if there's no punishment for being there, I don't think that's smart. If you want to just make it like almost a sort of like an override, where like if you are in that trigger already, he's going to go into that animation, as opposed to him just doing it out of nowhere. I don't know if that's a thing we can do, should do, or whatever.
We can figure that out. Although, because like you said, the animator basically literally only controls his visual presentation, right?
in space
and in his physical location.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, but right now all the non-jumping animations he does, they're all stationary, right? Because nothing else forces him to move.
Correct.
So with all that said, I feel like if we just redid the Chomp one, like I feel like if we literally encode, my instinct is that if encode, like let's look at his controller again. Tell me when you see the Chomp. There it is, Chomp attack. Like I feel like if we just what's the sound that turns on the trigger? I feel like if we did something like this, we omit turning the trigger on, and then
No, that's playing the animation. That's what it does.
Does that happen? Like, does the other script call as animator? Or
No, it's literally right. It's anim.set trigger.
oh, okay,
like,
I
that's
misread
the
that.
animator.
So this is what turns the
Yes.
his attack on. Okay, so we would do the opposite. We would leave this, either leave this audio or just make it a different noise. And then this part, like I feel like we could copy this whole thing and just take this line out and put in whatever code we want to do to make a thing come out.
But the only thing is that will involve a change in the animator in some way, probably like lengthening the duration that it's happening, because that's like that 1 second is literally for the animation itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm assuming that's how long it just is, without having looked at it in 5-6 years.
Yeah.
So, like that's what I'm saying. Like we could leave all that, but we will have to change a little bit to like add to it, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
And if you want to just remove that attack as it physically stands, that's fine. But we will have to change some things to make it usable. It's the only thing I'm attempting to say.
Okay.
If you were even listening to me, and if any of that made sense.
No, I think that makes sense. Like I said, and I think that is just like if it's how elaborate we want to get with it. Because if we want to just have him spit out one something, like that window as it exists right now is probably fine. If we want to make it more elaborate than that, that's probably fine too. I'm like kind of ambivalent about the Chomp itself right now. Like, do you have strong feelings about it one way or the other? I feel like we could leave it in or get rid of it. I do feel like it's a less interesting. Like it was good to have it as another option if the only thing he was going to do is the tongue. Like to have him at least do like 2 distinct different kinds of attacks, I think is good.
I mean, that's what he does.
But if we're gonna have him do this other stuff where he's like spitting out other things or whatever, might not need it. Especially because range wise, it also is like it is similar to the tongue in that like part of it emits directly from his mouth, except the tongue obviously eventually goes further than that. Like it travels a decent amount across the screen. So they have like a similar physical utility in terms of the space that they occupy. Except if anything, the tongue is more threatening because it goes farther, I think.
It definitely goes farther.
But I mean, it is thinner, I guess. Technically, this is a slightly fatter hitbox right up in his face. I'll think about that for a second. Because like I said, I think there's room for him to do both even. Or even, like we could have some things that are truly projectiles where they come out of his mouth with like a velocity that travel in a certain distance at a certain angle or whatever, with a certain speed. Or we could have something that's like that like comes out of there and either stays exactly where his mouth used to be or like is like a bubble, slowly travels up the screen after it comes out. I don't know, I'm just spitballing ideas at this point.
I mean, giving him a projectile basically just makes him into every other boss that there is. Like a direct projectile as opposed to the like area control type deal we had talked about before.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking if anything, it would be both in my mind. it would either be it would be like he spits out something that lands somewhere and then it stays there for, you know, the whole fight or some very significant amount of the fight, like it has like a really long decay rate or something. Like I said, at this point, kind of you tell me, because I'm like, I feel like we're dialing it more into making some tweaks that are along the lines of what you want this fight to be. Because I think the hitbox thing will work out fine that way. Now that we've kind of workshopped that a little bit. So get really specific. What do you want to add to him in terms of functionality?
Like, I feel like I've talked about it already. Like, what more do you want from me aside from new ideas completely off the dome? Like, I don't know what you want me to say.
Well, like I said, but when you say taking up space, like in what other way would that be accomplished if it wasn't a projectile that actually moved for some amount of time?
Well, what I read your description as is he's just shooting something. Like the fish, like the carrot, like the blob, like the garbage disposal. That's just shooting a projectile. That's basically the tongue.
Well, but the tongue is part of his physical geometry. I mean, I guess in behind the scenes it isn't, but you know, in the in the narrative, in the game space, it's part of his body.
That's why he would have a projectile that has like the spike in it, or it's basically like the TNT that Atticus has.
Like, yeah. So, like I said, just describe to me the physical properties of how you want them to like travel and settle in the level, just so I know what we're going for.
I thought I said that already. Like, they'll have the spikes in it. They will be at the top of the screen. If the bubble pops on its own, if the bubble pops while you or something else touches it, the spike just stays there. Because that's what the spike does in this game. It's an asset we already have, and isn't another thing I have to build.
Where is...
You're on the title screen.
Right, I'm just going to watch the level. I don't remember. I flipped it to... This is the frog or the garbage disposal. I think it might be the garbage disposal. Yeah, it is. Okay. Hey, buddy. Let's pause this here.
Unless you want to like send out a bubble that goes low and drops like a mine or something that's going to explode on its own. Like, I don't really want to add him just to shoot something. I think that's stupid. Because he already does that. The tongue takes up like half the screen.
Sure. But like I said, so in your mind, looking at the composition of the scene, it can either be here or here.
Duh.
And he would open his mouth and a bubble would come out and it would just travel straight up unless it contacts like Marta. Is that your thought?
Probably.
Okay, I'm just asking. I
like,
just want to be clear.
Like, that's what I said. It's literally what I said.
Okay, but
I thought the whole point of that second projectile was zoning specifically. Because you needed a reason to like have to get close to him because that's how you damage him.
Sure, but like I said, I'm really just trying to dial in on to what degree we want to do that. Because like I said, if we're not changing and that still might be fine. I'm not criticizing that thought as I describe this. I'm just describing the literal complete constraints it'll be under if we do it exactly that way. So if we implement it that way, the spaces that can be threatening will be here, basically all the bottom part, because he jumps back and forth behind it. So like everything, the lower third of the screen right now, which like probably be like at least. We'll have to think about making this room smaller, because like it can only be exactly a third smaller, right? Like the way the tiles work. Which is maybe fine. I don't know.
Unless you want me to, like...
Real hard. I want to look at him jump again. No, that'd be fine. I just wanted to make sure he didn't... That'd be fine. That'd be totally fine. Be a little compact, but that's okay. That's not a bad thing, because a lot of the other ones are real big. And with that in mind, I'm just looking... That'd probably be fine. I think that would actually come together real well. Because then let me pause it again. Basically, there'd be like mostly a U-shaped threat area at that point. Like, because eventually stuff can float up from where he's at the bottom up to here.
I mean, if you wanted to give him a more like directional based something just to make it easier on the code, he could shoot kind of across the screen in a slow moving. Like, I want it to be like a bubble. I want it to rise more like a bubble than to be like just a fucking bullet.
Yeah.
He could shoot from left to right, top right, and bottom left to top left, or bottom right to top left. Like,
okay.
So it's not like, because if it just goes straight up and you're there, you're gonna clutter that area, and it's not gonna be like, it's basically undoable or like unfinishable in that state because there's no way for you to get around him and the spikes, and it just invalidates most of the room because stuff's gonna keep piling up there, and it's not gonna be good.
Okay. Do we want to have them I'm way too lazy and I don't know what state that stuff's in, so I'm not gonna boot up Cucumber, but do you want them to keep moving around the room? Because I think that would be fine if that's a thing we want to do. Because in Cucumber, the bubbles that exist, they basically never stop moving, right, until they actually pop. Like, I think they just, as they hit surfaces,
I mean, you could just have them
calculate a trajectory to a different surface, and then go ahead.
You could just have them function like hers or most of the other bubbles in this game, where if they touch a surface, they just pop. So then the bubble will pop and drop the spike. The spike is the thing that's going to stay. The spike is threatening, not the bubble.
Okay.
You will not take damage if you hit the bubble. You will take damage if you hit the spike, because that's just how the spikes work as they are.
Mm-hmm.
The bubble would have to be large enough to compensate them, which should not be a problem.
Okay. I think that'll probably be fine. So then again, going back to like physical travel stuff, like I said, do you want them to come across to a corner? Because I do think that's also fine.
I mean, do you want them just to go fucking straight up? Because like that can happen too. Like, I was just trying to make a easier solution. Like,
not necessarily. Like I said, I just want to know what you're interested in.
I don't know. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Just do whatever you want.
I just need to know what I'm going to try to accomplish. Like what physically they need to be able to physically do.
I mean, we won't know how anything looks until we fucking do it. Like, we can only theory craft so long. Like, if shooting it across the room is bad, we'll change it. Like, we just need to be able to do it first to know how it affects the fight.
Okay.
We need to know how any of this works in practice before we can make any bigger decisions.
Okay.
That's why I'm just spitballing.
That's
why I'm not telling you the exact lines of code you need to enter to make these things work.
Okay. Well, like I said, I just wanted to get clarification. Because that...
I've been saying the same thing for the past, like, 30 minutes, Dustin. How much more clarification do you need without actually writing code? I don't know what you want from me. That's what's frustrating right now, is because I keep saying the same thing and answering the exact same questions that you keep asking me.
I mentioned the word projectile and you balked at it. That's where I got confused. Because you were like, well, I don't want it to be a projectile.
I don't want it to be like her fucking shots.
No, I get that. But, like, it literally is a projectile that just halts at some point. And that's all, like I said, I'm just trying to make sure I understand that that's what we're going for.
You said both when you mentioned a projectile. You said the bubbles like we've been talking about, and a projectile, which I read as a separate entity because you were not clear in what you were talking about.
No, that's not necessarily what I meant.
Okay.
Like I said, that's what I'm just trying to get clarification.
Well, you can't just keep using multiple words.
I meant the word projectile and the fact that, like, is it going to move out of him or not? Like, that
was always what we had talked about.
Okay. Well, that's outside. All right. So for this moment, the goal is to get a thing to come out of his mouth that's visually encased in some kind of bubble. Like, it looks like there's a thing inside a bubble. It'll travel across the screen at, like, a predetermined trajectory. Like, it'll just have, like...
Or just have velocity behind it.
Yeah, whatever. Like, either whether it's, like, a slightly random thing or if it always goes in, like, one single angle out of his mouth or whatever. Until it hits a surface, and then the bubble will pop, Like just be a different
Mm.
sprite that animates and then goes away, just like the cucumber ones, basically, just like this other stuff that she can do. And the object that's inside it, whether it's spikes or a mine or something, will remain on screen.
Mm.
Okay, that's where we're at. That all makes sense. That's our goal for right now. For that.
That's what I said. So if that's our goal, that's our goal.
Okay. Type for shit.
I believe in you. Home row.
This is just like a functional, like in most normal cases, if we just kept plopping stuff on there, I'm guessing it'll be fine. I don't know if we want to implement a hard cap on any of the stuff that would um just for the sake of performance and stuff. It's a thing we can test just to see what fucking happens. I'll just put that down.
If memory serves, there's no scripts attached to the spikes. They're just a thing. They don't do anything. Aside from have a thing that tells them they're a damageable surface. And the mines explode and destroy themselves.
Yeah.
Unless you want them all to be mines and they just don't activate until their bubbles pop and then they explode immediately. Like, I mean, if you don't go up in those areas, you're not going to get hurt. But
I'll think about it. Because it also wouldn't be too much of a stretch to even have the spikes work similarly as the mines. Like they can visually be this exact same thing that they are, and we just add a slightly different script to them that like maybe does make those go away on contact too at some point, and they just deal like a very vastly different amount of damage than the mines have a.
They already have that stuff on them. Like these objects exist in the game, and have like specific things for them. I'm assuming that you put them in the levels again because they used to only be in the key rooms when that was more of a thing.
Excuse me.
I thought we put them in the pipes as a whole.
I think so. But the spikes don't have any real functionality, right? Other than hitboxes?
That's why I don't want them to have universal functionality. I want this to be a different spike so that they're not just like destroying themselves in the level and mean
Yeah.
nothing because you don't get there in time.
No, 100%. I'm with you. I'm with you there. The ones in the levels we're not going to change. We might change them for this. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's fine. Trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's a solid list of to-dos though. Do you have any other thoughts looking at this right now? Like working backwards through that list, the first thing I think I'll try to do is see about changing the room size, because that's gonna determine how everything else is gonna feel. So and I don't think this is unworkable either. Like I think if the room size stays this size, at the end of the day it'll be fine, and we can try the smaller one just to see. Because like I said, it's gonna feel a little claustrophobic, but that might be a good thing, honestly, compared to the other ones. Like I haven't decided. I'll have to see it in practice. Because I'm trying to, like, this would be about the top of the room, give or take. If it were like one set of tiles smaller. Just watching him move now. That's all.
I mean, I can tell.
I'm just pleased to see him animate. He looks real good. I like that frog. Frog.
Well, there's a reason we like copied him into Cucumber.
Yeah, he's cool. He's cool as hell.
Can't he like jump really far?
Cucumber?
In that game?
Yeah, he kind of can.
Jump off edges. It's like I feel like I remember watching him fall for a long amount of time.
Because he freezes, yeah, like it's the same frames basically, but
well, yeah,
the up one, like in Cucumber, he just kind of like freezes in that state until he hits the ground, because he doesn't land until he truly physically contacts another surface in that game. So yeah, I believe if he finds himself in a weird position, he can just like jump off of a tall edge and fall real far.
I'm pretty sure I've seen him fall before.
Okay. I think that's good for now. That's a lot of like I said, more than anything, I was kind of dreading this stuff just because I know it's going to be the most work. Like the stuff in the regular levels, I think we've kind of just got. Like I don't think we're going to make any significant changes to it. We might tweak the enemy health values a little bit, or how much damage they do to the player. But I think that's about it, right? Like as far as I'm concerned, I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts on that?
I haven't thought about that specifically. Like,
okay, but that stuff's number stuff. I knew in here, and to some degree in the other boss fights, at least to make sure that they're working correctly, we would have more functionality to do. Like it's specifically this one and the garbage disposable, or not the garbage disposable. This one and the blob guy, the final thing. But I just knew we had actual work to complete.
I mean, that's the only part of this game that hasn't been like fully fleshed out. Though, like, it's mostly been the gameplay loop because it's always been showing.
Yeah.
For a long time.
But this is a good, like I said, I needed a refresher on how some of the stuff works. Help me get that done. And I needed a checklist of specific things to go in here and implement. Like I said, I had gotten through that medium list of errors, like UI error stuff in the last week or so. So I needed a new starting point on like definitive bullet pointed, like, actionable items to check out. So now I've got some of that. With all that, I think that's probably a fair time to call it an afternoon for being online, I guess. Because unless you've got any other thoughts, concerns, questions.
Curious, could you bring up the console again? I want to see if there's anything like that huge list of warning, or does it? If there wasn't any, or
it might have a lot to do with the way that
Were those from the garbage disposal? I honestly don't remember where that.
No, they
came
were from him. Like if I go back and try to damage him again, I bet some of that stuff will come up. Let's see. So like I said, there's a strong possibility. Maybe not. No, we're just gonna have to keep an eye on it. Although he hasn't actually been hurt yet. No. All right. I don't know. Oh.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. I don't know why. I feel like it's always after like damage fucks him up, and I'm still not entirely sure.
Well,
why.
it's probably because now that I've seen all that, since the animations are completely discrete from his like his functional loop and his animation loop are not actually tied together in any way, right?
I'm pretty sure they can't be. Not more than they already are.
They're just you just have tried to set up the timing correctly. That like it's probably the flinch that fucks it up. Like there's probably some part of that where like oh, that worked. Well, that's good to know. Because like trying to readjust for that, like even if you did like stop one coroutine correctly and start the other one, like he could have been 20 or 50 or 80% done with doing a tongue thing when you hit him, and then he'll try to like do the the hurt animation, and then I'll have to look into that. It might be worth just scuttling that, honestly. Just like him actually visibly responding to being damaged with an animation specifically. And like you said, maybe we just go out of the way to make sure that his whole body flashes or something, because I don't think he did that either, although I only hit him like the one time. Yeah, he didn't even do the he didn't visibly do the other thing because he was already kind of mid-jump. We'll check it out.
Like I said, if you only make him damageable during the croak, I feel like that might stop some of that.
Yeah, I think that's and that's another that's another really good visual, like, oh wait, I want to see him croak again. Come on, do it. So yeah, so like when his little chin, neck, I don't know, what is that, part of a frog?
It has a name.
When it bulges out, like if you even either changed the animation or made a new one of that is just slightly longer, where like it really stays a puffy for like a solid handful of frames.
Again, that'll be changing an animation, and that will probably just be like we could just make it happen longer.
Yeah.
Or he enters that state like 2 times in a row or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best route to do for this, because then, like I said, that'll we can even make the hitbox like different than it is right now. We can make sure that it really covers this whole kind of like front. Like any part of him that is yellow, we can kind of make sure that is kind of encompassed by that. I think that's probably for the best, considering how this is coded right now, because like I said, I don't really want to rework the whole thing.
Nope.
And that sounds to me like the most reasonable way to avoid like very weird animation issues, like trying to interrupt the animator in any way in like a context-based fashion based on player input, I think is asking for trouble with the way it's set up right now. As opposed to like obviously just changing the numbers as he takes hits or whatever, like then all the animations can still play on the timelines they're set up to, and then transition to the next thing, and that should all be fine. So I think that's good.
I feel like if you interrupt the croaking with the hurt animation, it shouldn't be a problem. Because it's not spawning anything. I think there's probably a small window before he actually does the tongue attack where he's vulnerable, and that's what's fucking it up.
Okay. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Because it's interrupting the spawning process, and then it tries to do that
Mm-hmm.
by picking up immediately where it left off. And
Yeah, and this would be a future thing to investigate for other game stuff. Like I said, I do know how to do it mostly in 2D Toolkit. I bet if either in this version of Unity or a future version of Unity they have implemented something similar, or like I said, it's just something that you didn't at the time have time to dig into fully. But that was one of the things we did. Like I said, that's just from a project planning standpoint, that's kind of one of the things we did. Like probably more wrong than right, but it's whatever at this point. Of basically you working on this project almost exclusively and me working on Cucumber almost exclusively. A lot of that stuff, a lot of the functionality behind the animations and stuff is very different, whereas the Cucumber stuff uses all that 2D Toolkit off-the-shelf product, and this uses a lot more of the Unity animator native stuff, but the 2D Toolkit stuff does have a like keyframe. You can just trigger a function call on a keyframe hit, so then like you basically are backfilling the timing of code events to the timing of animations, as opposed to trying to like do this sync up thing where you're just trying to make sure that in code the number of real time that has passed syncs up with the amount of time that you know the animation will take up. But except for luckily the fight's not that complicated, and I don't want to create more work than we need to and stuff that's already been written. Just want to do like make sure we do come up with a more formalized, more consistent, and more robust way to do stuff for future releases. I'm excited. He's really cool looking. I like seeing that frog do frog things. All right. Well, with that, we'll actually call it an afternoon.
fantastic.
Go see how that bad cat's doing. She was being so naughty in here. She's scratching at stuff and
Attacking me.
knock things over and attacking Lorraine. Thank you, Lorraine, for joining me on the internet to work on video games. Thank you, internet, for hanging out. We are gonna get off for the moment. We might be doing something next Saturday. Isn't that what you said?
Maybe. I'm
Yeah,
not sure. I have
so
not heard
we might-
anything one way
we
or
might
the
not
other.
be doing this next Saturday. Maybe we'll try to do it Sunday. Maybe we'll try to do it Thursday. We'll see. We'll be back not too distant
In
future,
the future.
working on more game things.
Wow.
So I'm gonna reach over with this other mouse, and until then, we'll see you next time.
Bye.